Hey guys, today we're going to learn how to do basic photo compositing. We're going to learn the 6 steps that you require to follow for any compositing that you want to do. We're going to go from this to this. Let's get started. Okay, here I opened the 2 images that I want to work on, the bodybuilder and the background. So before we start the 6 steps, we need to convert both of them to a smart object. Basically, right-click the layer, convert to smart object. The same thing here, convert to smart object. Done. Step number 1, matching perspective and focal length. Now, if you're taking the pictures by yourself, it's easy to do because you know the lens focal length and your perspective. However, in my case, I use stock images. So I try to search for 2 images that have similar focal length and perspective. So let's first resize the bodybuilder. I think here probably is a good size, maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, perfect. So again, step number 1, matching perspective and focal length. In this case, I chose 2 images that have similar focal length and perspective. Done. Step number 2, cut out your subject. There are so many ways and techniques to do that. However, in this case, when you have a contrasty image, this guy standing in front of a black background, it's so easy to do. Let's see how. First, open up the smart object layer, double click on it, and you go to properties, remove background. Done. After that, Command W or Control W to close that layer, save, and it's already cut out. Magic. Step 3, matching brightness. There are so many techniques. However, the easiest way is try to remove the color from the pictures so we can focus on the dark and light area. Add a black and white adjustment layer. And this way you can just focus on the light and dark area. I like to zoom out to try to see. And you can see here that our guy is so bright compared to the background. So simply add a levels adjustment layer, clip it to the bodybuilder, and try to adjust the brightness of the guy. So here, I think he needs to be a little bit darker. Not that much. Probably this way. Zoom out. Yep. I think that's enough. Probably this much. Step 4, matching saturation. So let me get rid of this black and white layer. I don't need it. There are so many ways to match saturation. I'll explain the easiest. Simply add a solid color. Choose something very, very bright, like for example, red. Change the blending mode to hue. This will show you the relative saturation of the subject to the background. You can see that he's more pinkish than the background. So simply, the same story, add hue saturation. You have to always clip it to the subject, reduce the saturation a bit until both element matches. Probably right around here. Of course, you can select this box and use your up and down arrows. I think somewhere here. Perfect. So step 4, matching saturation, done. Step 5, we need to match color. Let me get rid of this layer. Step 5, matching color. There are so many techniques. I'm going to explain one of my favorites. So first, add a new layer. Press Shift Delete and fill it with 50% gray. Change the blending mode to luminosity. I want to boost this effect, so I'll add hue saturation, increase saturation to 100%, and those 2 layers are the help layers. Your job is to try to match your subject to the background. You can see that our guy here is more orangey than the background, and the shadows here, the black areas of the background, has bluish tint. and we need to do that on our subject too. So the way I use it, I use a selective color adjustment layer. Again, clip it, and let's work on that. First, let me work on the blacks, which are the dark areas on our subject. And I want to introduce this color here, the bluish magenta tint. So I can select this box and press my up arrows. Go down on the yellow bit. And you can see here that we have introduced this bluish color. It's a bit too much, I think. Probably around here. Next, let's work on the midtones, which is the neutrals. And we want to match this orange to this orange. So simply reduce the cyan a bit. Magenta. Yellow, increase it a bit. And you can see here we are matching a bit, right? Maybe less magenta. It's an experiment, basically. Okay, after you're happy with the midtones, I want to change a bit the whites. Also, it has a little bit of orange. Okay, I played a little bit more in the blacks, neutral, and whites until I matched both elements together. So let's remove the help layers. Close this property panel and see the before and after. This is after, this is before, after, before. I'll reduce the opacity a bit, let's say to 85%. Sounds good. Step 5, matching color, done. So step 6, I call it others or miscellaneous. Here you can do whatever you want. I usually color grade, add vignette, and add final touches to the whole image. So let's start. I will remove both these layers and start color grading. So I'll use selective color. I usually like to add the cinematic color grade, which is bluish tint in the shadows, yellow, orangey in the highlights. So let's do that. This is the black. I'll add the cyan a bit. I reduce magenta to introduce a bit of green, and I reduce yellow. I'm okay with that. Then I'll go to whites. I'll do the opposite. I'm going to reduce cyan, increase yellow a bit, and maybe add a bit of magenta. I'm happy with that result. Now, if it's a bit too much, you can always reduce the opacity. However, I'll show you another technique. So basically add channel mixer, put it on monochrome, and I usually like to choose the highest contrast. So I use one of these presets. Let me see, yellow, red, orange. I think orange works better. There's a very high contrast between the highlight and the shadows, and I like it. Then what I like to do is reduce the opacity of that to something very, very low. Let's say around 13%, or maybe a bit more, 15%. And you can see here the effect of it. Before, after, before, after. It reduced the saturation of the color in a nice way. Maybe I'll increase the opacity maybe to 20. Let me see. No, that's a bit too much. 18. I like it. Then I add a vignette using curves, reducing the exposure. Select the mask, Command I to reverse the white to blacks. And then I use a very, very big brush. Zoom out and put the flow at around 9 or 10. Start painting. I'll reduce it a bit to 83, maybe 84. Step 6, done. And the whole composite is done, and I think it's looking good. Let's see before and after. Remove all these layers. This is before, this is after.